and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. My name is Thomas. I'm joined today by Ben from the Toffee Blues. We're going to be previewing the West Ham game at the weekend. We are away to West Ham. Just a couple of stats just to start off. West Ham in the last 5 games, they've got 2 wins against Gillingham and Bournemouth, and then 3 losses against Sheffield United, Leicester and Crystal Palace. Obviously, the Sheffield United one being a bit controversial with Declan Rice's handball in the last minute. I'm sure we might... Every football video these days seems to be talking about VAR, so we'll see if we get onto that eventually. Just to kind of start off, we'll talk about the lineups pretty quickly. Don't worry, we'll get on to David Moyes. That's obviously going to happen, but we'll get there pretty soon. He's back at West Ham. West Ham are definitely going to be without Fabianski, Fredericks, Wilshere and Yarmolenko. In terms of doubts, Felipe Anderson could be one, Mikel Antonio or Masuaku. We are recording this ahead of the press conferences, so we're not certain on kind of injuries and who's going to be playing, who's going to be missing. But we'll definitely and Gomez, who's great to see Gomez back at Finch Farm this week. We'll see how long it is before he comes back, but definitely I think a lot sooner than some people thought. And I think we'll probably be without Iwobi as well. But just to start off, we won't talk about West Ham. The Brighton game was 1-0. It was a bit scrappy towards the end. Probably could have done with a couple more goals to kind of settle it. We're probably the better team overall, but obviously kind of have to be scoring more. In terms of that game, Ben, how confident are you feeling coming off the back of it, or do you have any concerns that you think could affect us against West Ham?
Well, I think against Brighton, we were compact and we were organised, which is probably the best way to describe the defence. I think, yeah, like you say there, we could have probably and should have won the game 2 or 3-0. We had chances. Obviously, we had the disallowed goal. Definitely should have had a penalty in the first 5 minutes even. But I think at this stage of the season, especially with the fixtures we've had, it's a case of wins, 3 points and a clean sheet. Positives, 3 wins out of 4 in the league for Ancelotti. So really, that's sort of what I'm taking out of it. And ahead to the West Ham game, I'm not sure, because I think, like you've alluded to there, with the injury list that they've got, I think that presents a unique opportunity for us to go and try and win it, because a draw wouldn't be the worst result in the world. Listen, we don't want to go there and get turned over by David Moyes, especially if they've had loads of changes and then go back into like this negative sort of tornado that those Everton fans seem to get involved in after every defeat. So a draw wouldn't be the worst result. However, given the injury list you just said there, I want 3 points. I feel as though, especially after the derby, which I don't want to really mention, but I feel as though the players, they owe us something. Whereas normally I'd say to this squad, sort of, I'll take a draw in that game. No, I think I want 110%. And I want a result here because West Ham are struggling more than we are. We've got a world-class manager, and I'll be honest, we've got a better team. Especially, I heard Felipe Anderson's out. He's probably the danger man for me, along with Sebastian Haller, who strikers who are struggling always seem to score against Everton. So he's obviously going to score on Saturday, but as long as we score more, I don't care.
Yeah, definitely. Just what you touched on there, obviously, it's important to get points on the board at this time of the season. It wasn't the best win against Brighton. It wasn't the best win against Newcastle. It wasn't the best win against Burnley. But the point is, they were all 3 points. And I think that it has to be appreciated, kind of holding on for a win in that manner, kind of one goal ahead. It's not always easy. We saw plenty of times.
Satisfying, isn't it? I think it's quite satisfying to win 1-0 in a game like that, because it's so easily the games that you will draw 1-1 or draw 0-0 and you won't take that chance. So, and the fact, it's quite reassuring to know that when we've been 1-0 up under Silva or previous managers, we'd be panicking. Ancelotti seems to go negative with the subs. He seems to be bringing defenders on when they're 1-0 up 20 minutes deal, because he knows the importance of seeing out a 1-0 win, because he knows that last 20 minutes, if we don't create any more chances, 5 days down the line, nobody will notice. It's just a case of everyone noticed the result. So, the game management for me is quite refreshing, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Ancelotti, he's done really well in that, because I was at the Newcastle game, obviously not being from Liverpool, but when I was at the Newcastle game, God. And then obviously bringing on Fabian Delph, kind of just to slow down the midfield. It's always substitutions like that. They're not the most exciting, but it was so important. He got on the ball in the Newcastle game. Obviously, since that game, it's all gone a bit downhill for Fabian Delph. Yeah. But we'll try not to dwell on that too much. So we know game management's improved a lot under Carlo Ancelotti. West Ham, they have been struggling. That's always a bit of a banana skin, I feel, with West Ham. Sometimes they can put in some good performances. They do have some dangerous players, as you mentioned. Yeah. In terms of dangerous players, I know you touched on Haller there. Who do you think are the biggest danger men, especially applying them to our team where our weaknesses you think they might be? Who do you think are their biggest danger men? Obviously, considering Felipe Anderson will potentially not be playing.
I think it's Haller all day long. Like I say, excuse me, any struggling striker that we get facing us in any competition, league or cup, seems to have the game of their lives. So I'm not very encouraged by the fact that he's struggling a little bit, because when he first signed for them, I was sort of looking at him going, why did Everton look at him? First sort of 5-10 games, he looked quality and he was bagging them for fun. Gone off the boil a bit, and I don't know whether that's a supply issue or not, but you imagine he'd be right up for it on Saturday, especially with the new managers you've touched on, Moyes going in there. I worry because we've struggled in the past from set pieces, and I worry that maybe we might get a little bit rough and bullied by him. I think I'm confident with Holgate. I'm Mina to an extent, but if Michael Keane gains his place in the team, I wonder whether they might see a weakness in him and put Haller up against it. Other than that, obviously, the likes of Felipe Anderson, who's probably pound for pound the best player, although I do think he's quite overrated compared to, say, a Richarlison, for example. But you know what? We shouldn't be worrying about their weaknesses as much. They should be worrying more about our strengths. Because I think, really, if you compare two teams, we should be considered the favourites for that game. Man for man, we should be going there to win, and they should be more worried about us than we are of them. But it doesn't always work like that with Everton.
Yeah, definitely. Haller, as you mentioned, he's a striker that's not exactly buying them for fun. He did score a good goal the other day. I think it was the 4-0 against Bournemouth. He scored quite an acrobatic finish. Obviously, we all know about strikers struggling. There was Mitrovic last season when he was playing for Fulham, when he just bullied the defence all game. That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think it's so important that Yerry Mina and Mason Holgate started centre back,
because
as we know, Michael Keane's so error prone when it comes to heading the ball, playing the ball.
He has the potential to get roughed up. For me, Michael Keane, he's all right on the ball, but he has the potential to sort of wilt under the pressure a bit, I think, whereas I think Mina might stand up to the test a bit better.
Yeah, definitely, because there's one thing that, a big striker can rely on if he's not covering goals. He can bully defenders still, and Haller is kind of that kind of player. In terms of, we'll stop dwelling on West Ham's strength so much, but we're staying on West Ham for a second. David Moyes, we have to mention him. In terms of the future and maybe this game, or what effect it might have on this game, how good do you think this second appointment of Moyes might be? He was there originally. He kept them up. They looked like they were going to get relegated. Now Pellegrini's gone. Moyes has come in. Probably a lot of disappointment from West Ham fans. People aren't really sure why David Moyes has still got a job. I'm sure he was absolutely livid that he didn't end up at Everton. I'm sure he was waiting for that phone call, sat there waiting for Mashiri or Kenwright to call him up. In terms of West Ham generally, how important do you think he could be for them? And do you really see him lasting past the end of the season? Obviously, he got sacked last time. Do you really see him lasting past this season, or what do you think is going to happen to them, basically?
Phil, first of all, start off by saying that if I was a West Ham fan, I'd be very, very underwhelmed. You've only got to look at... I mean, I don't always get the comparisons between West Ham and Everton, because I think Everton are a much bigger club than West Ham. I think West Ham with the new stadium, they're the ones who are pushing this narrative of putting us in the same kind of category, if you will. But for me, West Ham are as big a club as Everton. And if they are somehow, if West Ham fans are, if ever they listen to this and they do sit there thinking, we are at the level that Everton are at, we should be competing with Everton kind of thing. Well, the fact is, we've gone out and got Carlo Ancelotti. They've gone out and took David Moyes, a manager who we seemingly have done everything we can to avoid appointing. Because I think if they'd have wanted him, he'd have been in the second Marco Silva was sacked, and that would have been it. The fact is, we went through so many names while he was on the other end, like waiting for the call, suggests that we were trying to do everything on our power not to appoint him. So if I was a West Ham fan, I know they're in trouble where they are, but I don't think they're bad enough to go down, personally. I don't know. Possibly before Moyes went over, but he's already got 3 points. 3 points at that level is so important. A couple of wins, you could be up there. I think if the injuries mount up, they could be in trouble. But I think it's the strength of the squad that's going to get them out. I don't actually think David Moyes is a guarantee to keep them up. I think David Moyes might have struggled to keep them up. I remember saying that to my friends at the time when he got the West Ham job. But I think they've just about got enough good players rather than a good coach to stay up, to be honest. So I'm just glad he's not in the Everton dugout come that game, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I think the problem is with Moyes now, a couple of bad results and it could really turn against him. It's not like if Carlo Ancelotti comes in and gets a couple of bad results, people aren't going to be, this is disastrous. But in
you
the
can't
position
question Ancelotti, can you? But Moyes, you can question. Nobody's wanted to go near David Moyes with a 10-foot pole for a while after, understandably after what happened at Sunderland, etc. But West Ham are by no means the worst team or the smallest club in that league, and they've ultimately had to turn to him. And I think I'd be disappointed if I was a West Ham fan. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, we saw last season the West Ham fans can get quite hostile. Was it last season or the season before? There was
It
the
was the
bloke with
season
the
before
corner
when
flag.
Moyes was there, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, there was the bloke with the corner flag. Their fans can get quite hostile, like ours can at times. I think Moyes is now in a poor position that if he does well, it's as if okay, Moyes has kept us up. Now we're looking to more looking at better managers. If we go down, it's all Moyes' fault. A couple of bad losses, and they're all over the place basically.
But that's what he's done for his own career. That's not. I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for David Moyes for that, because at the end of the day, he took the job at Man United, which I don't actually think had a negative effect on his career. He could have still got a top job because everyone could see that it was slightly harsh, that he was dealt the way he was dealt with at Man United. But the fact is, he's gone to Sociedad, took a mid-table team, got them in the relegation zone. He's gone to Sunderland, got them relegated when Sam Allardyce kept them up quite comfortably with a few games to spare the year before. He's made this narrative for himself. And I'll be honest, I look at him now. I'll be honest. I look at it and I don't even think he's as good a manager as Sam Allardyce. I really don't. Sam Allardyce guarantees keeping you up. David Moyes, for me, doesn't guarantee you anything. And he's got to take this opportunity at West Ham. And if he does well, he might keep the job. But you're always going to want more, because we've seen, with me and you as well, then we've seen what David Moyes is like. He might go to West Ham, stabilise and get them a top 6 finish, but he never kicks on. He'll never kick on for me, and that's why, again, I'd be sort of, if I was a West Ham fan, hoping that he kept them up, but to go for a more expansive coach, shall we say, in the summer.
Yeah, definitely. So, just moving on from David Moyes, sadly, it's not the David Moyes show.
Bye,
sadly,
David.
Mate, it's not the David Moyes show. We've talked about West Ham's strengths. They've clearly got a lot of weaknesses. They're in a tricky position at the moment. Obviously, Pellegrini was sacked. Probably that was all to do with momentum. I think Pellegrini's probably still a decent coach. The momentum kind of built up against him. They do have some good players, as we mentioned. In terms of their weaknesses, though, and combined with our strengths, where do you see kind of the biggest areas to exploit, and where can you see that potentially happening on Saturday?
I think the fullbacks. I think Aaron Cresswell, although he's been consistent Premier League former in his time, he's past his best. Masuaku, I believe, is injured, and I believe he's a player that David Moyes actually quite favours on that left-hand side. Also, Ryan Fredericks. I mean, I actually, earlier this season, when I noticed Ryan Fredericks in the West Ham team, I actually didn't know where he'd come from. I literally was like, is he like a kid in the academy? And then when I checked that he was 27 years of age and he'd come on a free transfer from, I think it might have even been a lower league team, I was a bit like, what's going on there? Yeah, he's got pace, but I don't see anything. And it doesn't look like they're even trying to improve on. They've not been linked with any right backs that I know of since Zabaleta left. So I definitely around the fullback. You put Bernard and Luca Dean up against a fullback, especially like him, who's maybe better going forward than defensively. You've got to get some joy. And for me, again, the other side with Richarlison up against Aaron Cresswell. If you keep Aaron Cresswell off set pieces, defensive-wise, should run rings around and really Richarlison. I think it's just going to be a battle of the two defences, because like I say, we've got to cope with Haller and they've got to cope with our sort of perhaps a bit more fluid of a front two in Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, or unless Moyes Keane starts. But I think that's where the game could be won lost on the flanks, because they're going to try and get the ball out wide as well to feed the ball into the middle. So if we can get our fullbacks to cut out the balls into the box, and the likes of the fullbacks in Dean and Sidibe can get forward and create chances for us, I think that's where the game could be won or lost.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the fullbacks are definitely a weakness. I think at times, people might not agree with me here, their midfield, I think at times is a bit volatile. There's Mark Noble, who's definitely kind of lost the pace. He's a decent player, but kind of just a utility player now. I think Declan Rice has some potential, but he's definitely got the potential to go missing. He definitely did in our game earlier this season. I think Declan Rice at times can be a fairly, I'm not really sure how to say it, kind of absent footballer. I think
he's like Tom Davis. I don't think he's any further forward in his development than Tom Davis is. It's just now he's just burst onto the scene. 2-3 years ago, people were saying the same about Tom Davis, and I think that's where he's at. Declan, I don't see it personally, especially from the game of Goodison in the season. Yeah, steady, okay player, but I'm not even sure he's a central midfielder. He doesn't do enough for me. He's a bit like Eric Dyer. He's just a sort of big lump in the midfield. He doesn't really do much for me personally.
Yeah,
he's got after on Saturday now, of course. I've said that.
But. Yeah, obviously, yeah. But I think he just seems to go missing sometimes. I see what you mean by he's maybe not a midfielder, but I think it's something like Richarlison's made a similar amount of tackles to him this season, which is ridiculous because obviously Richarlison's been playing striker a lot for us. He's obviously been playing the midfield. So potentially the midfield, but obviously, as we know, our midfield also definitely has the potential to go missing at times. Mr. Sigurdsson and Schneiderlin themselves. But I doubt we'll see them starting together, but we won't dwell on our team too much. I'm sure there'll be a starting 11 video coming at some point. But just to sum up now, score predictions, scorers, where do you generally see the game ending up?
Well, I've got starting from my days recording the Royal Blue podcast with Liverpool Echo, I've come up with a system where every time I predicted a win for Everton, we've lost, and every time I predicted that we lose, we win. So purely on that basis, it's going to be 1-0 to West Ham, but with an asterisk.
Yeah, okay.
That is literally my system, so we'll see how it works.
Yeah. I could definitely see us winning. I don't have a system like that. I can see us winning. It's definitely a winnable game. I can't see there being loads of goals, sadly. Obviously, we know we like to sit compact. We did it against Brighton to protect the result. They're not exactly going to have loads of flair up front, missing Felipe Anderson. I'd see maybe a 1-0 or a 2-1, but I can definitely see an Everton win. That's what we're hoping for anyway.
You're right.
So thanks for coming on, Ben.
No problem.
Been a good discussion about the West Ham game. No problem. Thank you all very much for watching. Be sure to check out Ben's social media below his face. I never get which side it is, but it's one of these two. Check out all the Toffee Blues social media below, and let's hope for an Everton win.